Oh boy, we have a lot to talk about in the case of Stephan Sterns, who's accused of getting rid of his girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter, Madeline Soto. Boy, I just got a huge document dump from the Northport, Florida Police Department, 22 PDFs. For a second there, I thought it was the phone calls. I saw all these documents in my email and I thought, oh my goodness, here are the phone calls. But I realized, no, this is from the Northport Police Department. So, first off, two things to clear up the two main questions I get the most. These documents, you're going to want to see them. A lot of people ask for the PDFs. They want to download them. They want to read along. People like reading on their own. There are certain things that are redacted. I'm not going to divulge Stephan Sterns' parents' address or anything here on YouTube. I'm not going to dox them. If you want the documents from the Northport Police Department, you can check the links below. You can download all 22 documents from my Patreon at the link below. That's one of the most common questions I get. Boy, the stuff it contains about Stephan Sterns, his movements right around the day and the days after Madeline Soto disappeared, his travels to his dad's storage unit, the way his mom was so upset when she found a doll's torso in the room where Stephan was staying in their home in Northport, how she freaked out, how she ran out and started calling Maddie's name, the things she believes someone, there's a lot of redactions, knew about what was happening to Maddie all along for years, how Stephan probably stole money from his parents, the things Stephan's dad did to come to his rescue around 3 a.m. to try and help him with this housing crisis. There's so much in these documents. So again, I don't put them on the screen. I'm not doxing anyone. I don't want this video to be taken down from YouTube. So that covers the first question. Get all the documents over there. Second question I often get a lot of emails and comments about is how to get this stuff. These documents were gained from a public records request, a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request from the Northport Police Department. Now we know there were several addresses attributed to Stephan Sterns. When this case first broke, I did a lot of background research. I found all the addresses attributed to Stephan, and I looked for those police departments, those counties. Some addresses turned up nil initially. The police department may have been like, we don't know what you're talking about, there's nothing here, and then discovery came out, and then I was still like, wait, do you still not know what I'm talking about? Sometimes you have to keep going back and back for certain records requests. Obviously, Stephan Sterns has ties to Northport, Florida. His parents live there. Isn't it odd? That's the same place Brian Laundrie's parents lived. But by no means of reporting on this am I doxing anyone, nor am I encouraging anyone to contact his parents, do anything to his parents. I'm not calling for any harm to come to them. This is only a matter of what's reporting, not even everything in public records, because I'm not announcing their home address, but still, I put those caveats out there. So this answers the second question, how I get the body cam video footage, how we get the phone calls, how we get documents like this. I did a background check on Stephan Sterns. When the case first broke, I went to all the different police departments, and some of them I had to keep going back to glean this information. Some of them charge you stuff. This is just full transparency. I want you guys to know, since I get so many emails and questions about this, some of them you have to pay. For these documents, there was no additional charge. I already paid something like $25 or more for this. The phone calls will be around $67.50. We know that other document, the huge 896-page document, was more money, and it varies. Different people got different quotes. So basically, to answer your second most posed question, I get this through Freedom of Information request. It's just a lot of research. Some people don't feel like doing all that research or putting in all the time it takes to get these documents directly from police. Indeed, it takes time and money, and it takes a lot of trial and error. I hope that answers all your questions. Now let's dig into these 22 PDFs. I'm not going to read every single dot and tittle, because, for example, this first CAD activity report entry from the Northport Police Department is 23 pages, but it's not like a lot of narrative. The date report, it says February 28th, 2024. It says, in reference to a phone call from Orange County Sheriff's Office, Corporal Evan Avila, and they have his callback information. We know that the Orange County Sheriff's Office, where Stephan and Maddie and Jen lived, They worked with the Northport Police Department to help them. At this point, they were still trying to find Maddie, and they discovered that Stephan Sterns' dad, Christopher Sterns, had a life storage unit, and they found out someone had been accessing that unit. And so cops were worried. Was this like a Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell situation? Was this adult Stephan hiding the body of a deceased child in some life storage unit? Of course, cops did their due diligence to figure it out. So they're just telling you about them being dispatched, being on the scene, and a whole bunch of different info, which you can go and read in the PDF yourself. This is not the most, I guess, important part or the most narrative-driven part. There's also a case property list. Now, some of this stuff, if not all of this stuff, is not necessarily listed in that huge 896-page dump of discovery that we previously got, because some stuff, it's like we just found it out. The docket and I on YouTube, we were texting each other like, what? Oh my goodness, life storage unit? What? Some kind of doll found? It's just crazy. Just wait till we get to that part. So the case property list is only one page. They tell you what's uploaded to evidence.com. For example, an interview with Stephan Sterns' dad, Christopher Sterns, on April 11th, 2024. Okay, now that I'm editing this, I see that April 11th, 2024 was the same day that Chris Sterns turned over a hard drive to police. April 11th, 2024. Was it during the interview? Stay tuned as we go over this property receipt. And technically it says recovered from storage unit by C. Sterns at noon on April 11th. So does that mean Chris Sterns found the hard drive himself the same day he interviewed with police? It's only audio. It's submitted to evidence.com. We have not heard this interview yet. I don't know when we'll be able to hear it. There's miscellaneous papers and receipts. There's a keychain photo of a young female. I'm assuming this is evidence that police gathered from Stephan Sterns' parents' home, maybe where Stephan lived in that room. I know there's something about a big computer tower that Stephan Sterns moved into his parents' garage. The police got that. I don't know if this property list is everything they got from the life storage unit as well as the room where Stephan stayed in his parents' home or what. But there's miscellaneous papers and receipts. There's a keychain photo of a young female. And I'm wondering, is that a keychain photo of Maddie that Stephan had carrying around like some kind of trophy? There's one bracelet in a box, teal and yellow, with Stephan beads. Stephan beads. That sounds like one of those friendship bracelets. You know, and I'm like, did Maddie make him a bracelet? I don't know. We'll probably see some of these evidence photos at some point. And there is one when we get to it. It's going to say, warning, CSAM. I saw that in handwriting. Someone had written on one of these PDFs. There were 2 Florida driver's licenses for Stephan Sterns. Now you're going to see a lot of jump drives, and I shudder to think what's on these jump drives. There's one SanDisk Cruiser Glide 8 gigabyte no cap, so we know those are the jump drives. There's a 1 Data Stick Pro thumb drive, 64 gigabytes. So that's a relatively good size. I mean, some of the external drives I have are like 1 terabyte, 5 terabytes, because video takes up so much space. Oh, he has kind of like the kind I have here. 1 WD SATA 64 megabyte cache WD-SN. I don't know if that's an external drive though, but I do have some WD equipment. There's a PC power cord. There's 1 Cyber Tower PC tower, 28 digital images of Stephan's room. So that should be the room in his parents' house where the cops went and started taking all these photos. And they probably have a photo of this doll's torso that made his mom, Debra, freak out because she thought it was an actual body. There's 1 swab of metal pull handle of storage unit. So the cops swabbed this storage unit. They wanted to know who exactly was accessing this storage unit right after Maddie disappeared. 1 swab of the rope cord and handle of the storage unit, 1 swab of the lock of the storage unit, 1 cut unit lock. They must have cut the lock on this storage unit, and 1 DVD-R containing search warrant photos, 69 of those. Now, there's a 4-page crime scene personnel log. The location is 1001 Executive Avenue. That is the location of the life storage unit that Stephan, I believe it's Stephan, visited only for about 10 minutes at some point. Stephan may or may not have visited this life storage location. You'll see once we go through all of these documents, and then when we read the concluding document, it turns out that cops may have been wrong with their initial assumptions about who visited the storage unit. We'll get more into that. So the crime scene personnel log just kind of shows who logged in and out, who logged in, every officer entering and leaving that scene. The date, February 29, 2024. So they have like Sergeant Fisher, and they have all these people from the Northport Police Department, reason, investigation, initial scene security, and the like. Then they have other people like SSO K9, search and rescue. They have 4 SSO officers, and then they have one from the Kissimmee PD, and they have one from the Orange County Sheriff Department, and others from Northport Police Department. Their time in, their time out. They were there either late at night, early in the morning. These people initially thought, before Maddie was found that Friday, March 1st, they thought Stephan could have hidden her here. And so, of course, they bring the dogs, they bring the canine units, they're searching, tearing that place apart. The dogs did react a little differently to his storage unit. Now again, this is Christopher Sterns' storage unit, Stephan's dad, but we're going to learn about 2 later in one of these documents. I read them all really quickly, how Christopher Sterns at one point lost the key to his storage unit. So even though this is Stephan's dad's storage unit, he very well may have had no idea as to what his son was doing. His mother's going to be very upset over that. His mother is going to wonder why people are blaming them for their son's heinous actions. She's going to be very upset. But this does not mean, in no way am I accusing or blaming or assigning any guilt to Chris and Debra Sterns, who are the parents of Stephan. I can see a pattern where Stephan may have very well stolen that key from his dad and used it, and we can go later and compare these dates. They think someone visited this storage unit. We can compare it with the dates of offense against Maddie to see if there's any kind of pattern. You know, was there some kind of something going on Stephan did? Was there some kind of CSAM that Stephan created, you know, during a certain date? And then the next day, did he make a visit to his dad's storage unit? Those are the things I'm wondering as I'm reading through all of this. But basically, this is just a log, as you'll see, crime scene personnel log for this case, where all these people are trying to figure out what Stephan did with Maddie. Some of this stuff was happening before he was even arrested that Wednesday. Some of this stuff, of course, investigation was going on before Stephan was even brought into custody. Late that Wednesday, February 28, 2024, we have public records request exemptions. Records requested, discovery reports. Date of request, May 17, 2024. It says, in fulfilling the above request pursuant to Chapter 119 Florida statutes, the Florida Public Records Act, exempt and or confidential information has been redacted pursuant to the below Florida statutes section. The fact that it's an active criminal investigative and intelligence information, child crimes, Marcy's Law, surveillance techniques, procedures, and personnel, and victims of DV, aggravated stalking, harassment, aggravated battery. Marcy's Law ensures that victims of crime have equal constitutional rights on the same level as those accused and convicted of crimes. That makes sense. The victims have to have their rights too. I know Stephan still has his rights, innocent until proven guilty, but Maddie has her rights too. Now we have an incident report, and the incident location is that life storage unit in Northport, Florida. It says body-worn camera used. So at some point we'll see the body cam videos of the cops going through this storage unit. The narrative says, and a lot of their narratives are similar, but certain cops give a different viewpoint, so I always like to read all of the narratives. On February 28th, 2024, at approximately 1921 hours, so that's about 7:21 p.m., we know Stephan Sterns was taken into custody sometime around then. It says, I responded to the area of 1001 Executive Avenue Life Storage in response to an assist other agency call. The complainant, Corporal Evan Avila of the Orange County Sheriff's Office, contacted the Northport Police Department in reference to a case that they were currently investigating. So Sergeant Fisher spoke to the Corporal Avila. Avila relayed there was reason to believe a suspect, a Stephan Sterns, who they currently had in custody, was at this location sometime earlier today. So sometime that Wednesday before he was brought into custody, Sterns may have visited that life storage unit. And so cops are like, why? There was reason to believe that the suspect had possibly left the body of a deceased victim at this location based off of investigative information that they currently had. Orange County deputies advised that the suspect was currently under arrest for sexual battery and possession of CSAM involving the victim. It was relayed that the victim was last seen in an abnormal state, not moving for several hours. This says not moving for several hours in the front seat of a vehicle at an apartment complex in their jurisdiction. They believed the victim in this case was reported as a missing child, and they probably say Madeline Soto, but they've redacted all of that. Once on scene, Commander Brownie, Sergeant Fisher, and I checked the area, searching to see if we could locate anything suspicious in nature. Sergeant Fisher managed to get a hold of a key holder for this location, Tamiko Ellen, who was able to identify the locker storage unit that was possibly utilized by the suspect, Locker B-124. Tamiko allowed for Sergeant Fisher and I to blank for the business. I don't know what these blanks say, I can only kind of infer. It appeared at this time blank upon initial inspection, after blank. The blank back any previous other than from the time point of when blank. Now that's a lot of redaction, so it's kind of hard to know what he's saying, but once we read the other reports, we'll try and glean what's going on here. The Sarasota Search and Rescue Team eventually was requested to respond to the location to check the area with their cadaver dogs, along with Sergeant Johnson checking the rooftops of the building with a department UAV drone. I then remained on scene and was informed that detectives of the Northport Police Department would be responding out to this location to conduct further investigation for this incident. Eventually, Northport Police Department detectives, along with detectives from the Kissimmee Police Department, responded to the scene. I completed a crime scene log for this incident. This concluded my involvement with this incident. So they list the involved other, which is just the woman who I believe worked at the life storage, and then Stephan Michael Sterns, 37 years old. They list his Santa Maria Drive apartment, that famous apartment 107 up in Kissimmee, as his address. 6 feet 2 inches tall, 200 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. That was from reporting officer Jeffrey R. It's kind of hard to say his name, Hard. It's like hard with a T at the end. So that was his perspective. Now we get a different officer's perspective. This is going to be Officer Zayn Robles. Zayn Robles. Forgive me if I'm butchering these names. On Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, I was requested to respond to Snug Street. Snug Street, I'll just say. That's the parents' home. I'll just say Snug Street, which is Stephan Sterns' parents' home. I'm not going to list their full address. This is in Northport, Florida. In support of a missing person investigation Kissimmee Police Department was conducting, Sergeant Fisher was contacted by investigators from Orange County Sheriff's Office concerning LPR hits for a suspect vehicle in Northport city limits. So LPR, as you might already know, is license plate reader hits. So they knew, wait, this is where Stephan was traveling. Based on this information, there were concerns of the suspect potentially bringing the missing juvenile to Northport. Their investigators also learned the suspect's father has a storage unit rental located at 1001 Executive Ave in Northport. It was discovered someone accessed the storage unit, and it was not the suspect's father, so it wasn't Chris Sterns. Based on the totality of the circumstances, probable cause was established to draft a co-affiant search warrant. Yep. For the storage unit in efforts to find the missing person. Detective Fegan and I maintained observation of the suspect's parents' residence. on Snug Street. So they're doing a stakeout. This officer and Detective Fegan were doing a stakeout of Sterns' parents' house. Upon our arrival, we observed a female, later identified as Debra Sterns, outside her residence calling for Maddie. Now that part is redacted, but since I've read all of these and I've gotten the context, you will see at the very last document we read, you'll see why she's calling for Maddie. It's the stuff of horror movies. I can picture it in my brain. Dark, middle of the night. Dogs being awakened. They're barking. Debra knows something's going on. Oh my goodness. I don't know if she's going to be exactly straight up with police at first, but then her emotions are going to come out. She's going to calm down, tell cops what she found and why she was calling for Maddie. 2 vehicles were present at the residence. The vehicle parked in the driveway was a tan in color Lincoln bearing a Florida tag, 17-day D. Like 17 daddy? No, 17-day D. D-A-Y-D. It was registered to Christopher Sterns. The second vehicle was a dark colored Honda bearing Florida tag IN49TI and was parked in the Swale in front of the residence. I had to look that up. It's a different area. Florida has some weird stuff I'd never heard of. Florida rooms, all that stuff. The vehicle was registered to Stephan Sterns, who is the suspect for KPD's case. Both vehicles were unoccupied. So by the time they went there, they found Chris Sterns' car and Stephan Sterns' car. Contact was made with Debra, who initially answered the front door very emotional. Debra spontaneously stated that she found a torso of a sex doll in Stephan's room. Isn't that weird that she just found the torso? I just find that weird. Debra eventually calmed her emotions and began to inform us that she had not seen Stephan. However, she believed he came to the residence last night at approximately 3:19 a.m. Now she's saying she didn't see him, but she believes he came to their house at 3:19 a.m. Technically, would that have been, since this is a narrative from Wednesday at night, and she believes he came last night to the residence at 3:19 a.m., does she mean technically Tuesday morning at 3:19 a.m.? I'm going to assume Tuesday is what she means, unless she actually means Wednesday morning. Sometimes people say last night when it's technically the morning. Debra explained that her dogs began to bark at that time, which is typically an alert for someone being in the home. Debra stated she has been home alone and her husband, Christopher Sterns, was in Orange County to assist Stephan in getting a hotel due to a housing crisis. So what does that mean? Was the housing crisis when cops told Stephan and Jen they could not come back to that apartment 107 Tuesday night. Now I believe they stayed there Monday night, but by Tuesday night, that villa, that apartment, that condo where the crime most likely took place, Stephan and Jen could not stay there Tuesday night. They needed a hotel room. So I'm assuming that's the housing crisis they're talking about. Debra advised me she had discovered Stephan had also been stealing cash from her and Christopher. So people talk about what a loser this guy is. Imagine what he's put his parents through all the years. But going through this, and now his mom learns that this 37-year-old man, now 38, was taking money from his mom and dad, who are kind of going out of their way to help him. Debra expressed that she was aware of the allegations of her son, and she felt great disgust of her son's actions. What was she aware of? What actions? We're going to get more into what she claims he was doing, the assault and whoever knew for years. But this is still Wednesday around 7-something, so I guess she knows he's been arrested and why he's been arrested. So I'm assuming she's speaking of the CSAM charges. Debra was in fear of Stephan possibly hiding Maddie, the missing juvenile, in her home. So, oh my goodness, Stephan's mom is like, did Stephan bring that young girl here and hide her somewhere in our home? Debra also explained she has been calling out for Maddie outside in the event of blank Maddie, in the event of Maddie possibly being abandoned in the woods. Debra allowed units to conduct a sweep of her home and the vehicles on the premises. Detective Fagan and I responded to the storage facility where we stood by for the search and rescue K9 units. We escorted the canine units to Snug Street, where we stood by until the canine units completed their canvass. I returned back to the storage unit and assisted Detective Witkowski and Detective Fegan in canvassing the area of Commerce Parkway. Please see Detective Witkowski's supplement for details. The search warrant was executed on the unit in question. I stood by while crime scene technicians collected items and took photographs. This concludes my involvement with the case. So that was the report from Reporting Officer Robles. Now we've got a 5-page notice of supplemental discovery. And again, I don't have to read the whole thing. You can find the link below. Comes now the state of Florida by and through the undersigned Assistant State Attorney hereby makes the following information available to the defense. Now this was filed back in May 13th, so I'm not sure if we've seen this before. Perhaps we have. It just has a list of all these pages, page 1000 and upward basically. KIPD incident report, all these signature affidavits, all these different cops, supplemental reports. It's just a list. Application and affidavit for search warrant, Fitbit account. I think we've seen this. Digital content belonging to Stearns, inventory and receipt, Apple account associated with Jennifer and Madeline Soto, request to seal. There's a lot of stuff. The life storage facility logs. Now, we were wondering previously, like, what's up with this life storage? Now we see what happened. Chris Stern's timeline notes, Venetian Bay visitor log. So this stuff we've seen. An Amazon order, Madeline Soto's school profile and message history. I don't know if there's anything here that we have not seen in the list, but I'm sure sleuths will dig all into this and kind of do a comparison. It said copies of items listed will be provided under separate cover. Previous discovery provided includes pages 1 through 1008. So this goes up to, wow, even more, up to page 1473. So we don't have all those pages. It's just a list of the supplemental discovery. So now there's a property receipt. Boy, this is dated March 1st, 2024. This is the same date they found Maddie. The owner is Chris Sterns. It says 1 Cyber Power PC tower and a PC cord. And it says taken from garage. And we're going to see what Stephan's dad has to say about that. The other just looks like a different copy of the same property receipt listing that same PC tower, PC cord taken from garage. And we have another property receipt. This is the one that has that asterisk CSAM warning. So I'm just going to read the copy or the original. I'll read the original. It seems like there's a yellow copy of the property receipts and an original copy, and the original copies are easier to read. This other property receipt is dated April 11th, 2024. So, you know, it takes some time for them to dig up stuff. It has 7 items: miscellaneous papers and receipts, the keychain photo of the young female, 1 bracelet in a box, the teal and yellow with Stephan beads, the SanDisk Cruiser, no cap on it, looks like a jump drive or something, the 2 Florida driver's licenses for Stephan Sterns, the Data Stick Pro thumb drive, 64 gigabytes, there it is, asterisk, contains CSAM. So they wrote a note and bless these cops. They had to put in that thumb drive and it's like, whoa, this has CSAM on it. And then they have the WD SATA 64 megabyte cache. It sounds like an external drive to me. We don't know how large that one is. Oh, now the comment on this says recovered from storage unit by Chris Sterns on 1200 hours on April 11th, the hard drive. Others March 19th at 1752 hours at 5:52. So, oh my goodness, this was recovered from the storage unit by Chris Sterns, April 11th. I thought they would have taken everything from the storage unit initially, but maybe Chris Sterns took it, he found it in there maybe, these hard drives. I mean, this is crazy. This thumb drive containing CSAM? Yikes. That was recovered from storage unit by Chris Sterns on April 11th. It's weird to me that it took so long for that to be recovered. I mean, well after, more than a month after Maddie's body was found. Wow. And the fact that Stephan Sterns' dad found it. Did Stephan Sterns' dad find all that stuff and just turn it over to police and not look at it? I hope so. Did he look at it and then go, whoa, and then turn it over to police? I don't know. Again, I'm assigning no blame to anyone except Stephan Sterns. Stephan may have done all this heinous stuff without anyone else knowing about it. However, his mom will make curious statements from the last document we read where she's assigning blame to some redacted person for knowing what was happening to Maddie for years. So we have March 29th, another property receipt, 5:30. It just has the one cut unit lock, so they must have cut the lock on the storage, the one swab of the metal pull handle of the storage unit, one swab of the rope cord and handle of the storage unit, and one swab of the lock of the storage unit. They have to be sure, for the jury to say, look, this is who we know was accessing the storage unit, because I'm not sure if they have video evidence of Stephan Sterns being there. They might be able to have a lot of other great evidence, like the license plate reader or the, tracks of his car or whoever car he used to get there, but it helps if they have even more than that. Now we have the search warrant. This is 3 pages by reporting officer K.C. Howe. It says incident date 2/28/2024. But in the narrative, crime scene investigation, premise search warrant, agency assist on Thursday, February 29th at approximately 3:39 hours. This is 3:39 a.m. These cops are working, boy. I was contacted on my department-issued cellular phone by telecommunications to contact Detective Sergeant Fisher. Detective Fisher advised that the crime scene unit was requested to respond to 100 Executive Avenue, Unit B-124, in reference to a premise search warrant for an agency assist. I immediately contacted crime scene technician Walker. Upon our arrival at 4:43 a.m., we met with Captain Harvey, Commander Myers, Detective Fisher, Syjic, Robles, Chippendale, Witkowski, and Fegan. There's a lot of people responded. Detective Fisher advised that the Northport Police Department was requested to assist the Kissimmee Police Department and the Orange County Sheriff's Office with a missing persons case they're investigating. Fisher advised that a premise search warrant was signed by Judge Krug, and he requested that the exterior door of the storage unit be processed prior to the storage unit being open. That's a smart judge. The evidence sought in the search warrant includes the victim and/or clothing she was wearing, photos of the scene, any other evidence, implements, or devices related to the subject matter of the warrant relating to the warrant that could be used in violation of the laws of the state of Florida. Search warrant. The scene I responded to was a gated storage facility located on the south side of Executive Avenue, just west of North Toledo Blade Boulevard, in a commercial business district. The weather during the search warrant was mostly cloudy and approximately 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Overall photos were taken to document the location and condition of the scene as I found it. A visual examination of the scene revealed that Unit B-124 was secured with a locked overhead door. The storage unit lock, rope cord and handle, and metal handle were swabbed for potential biological evidence utilizing one sterile cotton-tipped applicator moistened with sterile water for each area, utilizing sterile latent fingerprint brushes and sterile black fingerprint powder like old school. The exterior of the overhead door was processed for latent fingerprint evidence with the assistance of crime scene technician Walker with negative results. So they got no prints, I guess, from it. Was Sterns wearing gloves? If it was him who went there. Northport Fire Rescue personnel were contacted to assist with removing the lock from the storage unit. Upon opening the storage unit, multiple boxes and storage containers were observed. Additional photos were taken to document the condition of the storage unit as I found it. Nothing of evidentiary value was located. Now, why are they saying nothing of evidentiary value was located? They didn't find Maddie. They didn't find her clothes or anything like that. But what about all those things we just read that Chris Sterns turned over to cops? The drives, the CSAM. When was that placed in there? Why wasn't that evidentiary value? Maybe it wasn't necessarily direct evidentiary value in terms of, okay, where's Maddie? I don't see her clothes. I don't see her body in here. But it did contain the CSAM containing Maddie. So some of these reports, that's only what they knew at this point. Physical evidence collected. Multiple detectives conducted a search of the storage unit. Yellow-colored numerical evidence markers were placed to indicate items of evidentiary value as follows. So they did find some stuff. Well, the one-cut storage unit lock. Additional items of evidentiary value were collected. One swab of the storage unit lock, one swab of the rope cord and handle, a swab of the metal pull handle. So the notes say the search warrant concluded on Thursday, February 29th at approximately 5:36 a.m. A copy of the search warrant and handwritten Northport Police Department property receipt were left on the scene. All collected items were packaged and submitted into evidence. The items will be held in evidence pending future requests for analysis. So yeah, maybe they didn't analyze them until later, but I don't know. The 69 digital photos were uploaded to the secure server for viewing and storage. All digital photos were also copied to a DVD and submitted into evidence. So that's it for Reporting Officer Howe's report. So we got a few more. Let's stick in there and keep going. This is the search warrant from Reporting Officer Walker. Thursday, February 29th at around 3:42 a.m. Walker was also contacted by the crime scene technician Howe on their cell phone, and they advised respond to this same unit. They arrived at 4:42 a.m. with all those people we listed before in connection to the missing persons case. Sergeant Fisher again advised a premise search warrant was signed by the judge and requested the exterior be processed prior to the storage unit being opened. So again, they were looking for in only this search warrant. So I guess that makes sense. They were only looking for the victim and or clothing she was wearing, photos of the scene, any other evidence. I mean, technically evidence was there, implements or devices relating to the subject matter of this warrant that could be used in violation of the laws of the state of Florida. So technically they found evidence there. It's the same as before, explaining it was a gated storage facility where it's located, photos, locked overhead, everything the same, sterile latent fingerprint brushes, black powder, negative results. Multiple boxes they saw, nothing of evidentiary value was located, and the search warrant concluded Thursday, February 29th around 5:36 a.m. That's it for Reporting Officer Walker. Now let's read Reporting Officer Chippendale's report. On February 28, 2024, I was requested to respond to 1001 Executive Ave in reference to an agency assist trying to locate this missing juvenile from the area of Kissimmee, Florida. Upon arrival, I was briefed on the situation, which turned out to be a possible homicide victim, and she is possibly in storage unit B124. Kissimmee detectives explained that the missing juvenile, Madeline Soto, was supposed to be dropped off at school by her blank, Stephan Sterns. They must have said by her mother's boyfriend or Jennifer's boyfriend. I was informed that Maddie never made it to school, and after several days of searching for her up in the Kissimmee area, she has not been located, and Sterns was arrested for sex battery and CP for what was found on his cell phone. Further investigation revealed Stephan may have come to Northport, where his parents live, and entered into his father's storage facility on February 28th, 2024. So that would have been that Wednesday, the day he got arrested. It is believed that Stephan may have been in his father's storage unit, and the Kissimmee detectives explained to us that someone used the father's code to get in, and the father saying that he lost a key to the unit months ago and he cannot find it. Stephan is believed to have been at the storage unit for less than 10 minutes before he heads back to I-75. At the time I arrived, Kissimmee detectives believed that Maddie may be deceased and her body might be located in the storage unit. I assisted in searching empty storage units on the property with Sergeant Strachek and Commander Myers. Nothing was found. I then assisted with reviewing Detective Sijek's search warrant for storage number B124. The search warrant was signed and the storage container was searched with negative results in locating Maddie. Once this was accomplished, the scene was released and I cleared the area, nothing further. So that's it for Reporting Officer Chippendale. Whew, so many cops responded, but I'm glad they did a wonderful job in figuring this case out. And I wonder if Stephan had stolen that storage key from his dad months prior. Was he so obsessed? What was he doing with all this CSAM? And was he hiding it in the storage unit? Okay, let's keep going. This is from Reporting Officer Fegan, 4 pages. On Wednesday, February 28th at approximately 21:46 hours, so that's 9:46 p.m. that Wednesday, Detective Robles and I arrived on scene at the Snug Street location in support of this investigation. Basically, that's Chris and Debra Sterns' house. On our arrival, we observed a female, later identified as Debra Sterns, outside her residence and calling out for a Maddie. It's redacted, but we know it's Maddie and we'll keep reading to learn how. So imagine this. Wednesday night, Stephan has been arrested. We see that perp walk. I'll have to check the time of that video if I can find when they published that to Twitter. So Orange County published this to Twitter 9:52 p.m. just a few minutes after Debra is going to be outside her residence calling out for Maddie. 9:46 p.m., Debra Sterns is outside her residence calling out for Maddie. Two vehicles were present at the residence. A tan in color Lincoln bearing Florida tag 17-D, which was unoccupied and forward-facing in the driveway. This vehicle is registered to the homeowner, Christopher Sterns. The second vehicle was parked in the swale in front of the residence. This vehicle was facing east and was also unoccupied and is described as a dark gray brown colored Honda bearing Florida tag IN49TI. This vehicle is registered to Stephan Sterns. Both vehicles were visually inspected and nothing overtly suspicious was observed. Contact was eventually made with Debra, who was very emotional during our initial interaction. Initially, Debra only appeared to be upset about a torso she found in her son Stephan's room. Debra would elaborate on this torso and described it as a sex doll. This was later determined to be a rubber plastic sex toy found by Debra when she was cleaning the room where Stephan had been staying. Debra advised that Stephan was not there, but she believed he had returned to the property last night. So again, this is Wednesday and they're saying, I think he came here last night. Does she mean 3-something a.m. Wednesday morning or 3-something a.m. Tuesday morning? Maybe it's Tuesday morning. It was later divulged by Debra that she was awoken at exactly 3:19 a.m. hours this morning. So now he's saying this morning. So that's Wednesday morning. 3:19 a.m. this morning to her 5 dogs barking in a manner to alert her that someone was at the house. Debra's husband, Christopher Sterns, was not home last night as he had ventured to Orange County at approximately 2300 hours to assist their son, Stephan Sterns, with a recent housing crisis. So, yeah, that makes sense. Chris Sterns wasn't helping his son at 3:19 a.m., and they're going to talk about, them all going to sleep and everything at the hotel. Chris Sterns ventured to Orange County at approximately 2300 hours, so it was about 11 p.m., and that should have been Tuesday night, to assist Sterns with a recent housing crisis, which they couldn't stay in apartment 107. Sterns needed his daddy's help to get a hotel room for Jen and Stephan. Debra believed that if Stephan returned to their residence, that he either returned to blank, what does that mean, hide Maddie, or for cash that was kept within the home by her and Christopher. Sterns must have known mom and dad keep cash somewhere, maybe they're old school, they like to keep cash around, I know where it is, I'm going to take it. Debra advised that she retrieved blank from Stephan's room and secured them inside her bedroom last evening. What did she retrieve from Stephan's room and secure in her own bedroom the last evening? That'll be interesting. Debra permitted us entry into her residence to conduct a security sweep of the home. Nothing of evidentiary value was observed, and the room where Stephan resided was photographed to accurately depict its appearance. The 28 digital images were later uploaded to evidence.com. They keep saying Debra would later disclose. It's like, she took her time to unveil information. Debra would later disclose that she and Christopher are aware of the allegations against their son, Stephan, and that Christopher is currently being interviewed by the agency investigating the allegations. Debra expressed her disgust at the crimes her son is alleged to have committed and is hoping that Maddie is found alive. So again, this was before Maddie was found. This was Wednesday. Debra opined that these allegations worried her to the point that when she found the sex torso, she initially believed it to be real. So that's why she was freaking out so much. She knew, okay, Stephan has been arrested for these horrible crimes against Maddie. We don't know where Maddie is. She finds this torso in her son's room. Ugh, and she thought it was real. This then led her to exit her residence and call out for Maddie. This is what Detective Robles and I heard at our arrival, as Debra ultimately believed that Stephan had returned at 3:19 a.m. and potentially abandoned Maddie in the wooded area surrounding their residence. I walked the exterior of the home and the accessible adjoining lots and did not locate anything of evidentiary value. So Debra freaks out. She sees, I don't blame her, that would be freaky, sees this torso. She didn't know if it was real or not in Stephan's room. He has it there in his parents' house, this nearly 40-year-old man. It's just strange. And she runs outside calling for Maddie. If she was afraid it was Maddie, she would know Maddie wouldn't be alive. But who knows how people react at a time of crisis? I mean, that's just weird. After clearing this location, I responded to the storage facility, where I was then asked to check a model home on East Price Boulevard. That makes sense, as this is a property that Stephan may have frequented due to Christopher's relationship with the builder, Bright Homes. Wow. This residence was secure and nothing of evidentiary value was located. I then escorted a K-9 unit rescue team over to the Snug Street address, that's Stephan's parents' address. Refer to Detective Wikoski's supplement for details on the area canvass on Snug Street that we conducted together. Furthermore, the same supplement will accurately reflect my involvement on the area canvass of Commerce Parkway. I would then return to the storage facility location, where I would remain until the search warrant was executed on the storage unit in question. So we had to wait to get that search warrant approved. At no point did I enter the unit or handle any of the contents. This concludes my involvement in this matter. So they have the vehicle descriptions, the Lincoln, the 2000 Lincoln, the 2012 Honda. Article evidence, recovered date, February 28th, around 10 p.m., 28 digital images of Stephan's room. So that's Reporting Officer Jared Fegan's report. We're in the home stretch. This is short, just a one-pager. Reporting Officer Fisher's supplemental report. On February 28th, 2024, while on marked uniform duty, I received a phone call from the Northport Police Department Dispatch Center asking me to contact a Corporal Evan Avila from the Orange County Sheriff's Office. I made phone contact with him, who relayed info regarding a case they're currently involved with KPD. They had a missing juvenile by the name of Maddie. They had reason to believe something more nefarious happened to Maddie. They were requesting we check this storage unit complex. A cursory search of the property revealed nothing, and at that point, the property was secured pending further investigation. After some explanation, I tracked down a manager for the property, Tamiko Ellen, so she is a manager for that property, and requested she respond to the scene. So once on scene, she advised the unit they were looking for was B124. Due to the info obtained by Corporal Avila, I requested the Criminal Investigation Division respond to take over the scene. Once detectives were on scene, I remained as the scene supervisor, providing scene security until the scene was released. This ended my involvement. That's why that was only one page. Now we've got a two-pager here from Reporting Officer William Myers. On Wednesday, February 28th at approximately 1936 hours, so that is 7:36 p.m., Sergeant Fisher of NPPD called me and explained investigators from Orange County were requesting assistance with this missing persons investigation because a vehicle connected to their suspect entered the city of Northport that morning at approximately 6:29 a.m. So that Wednesday around 6:29 a.m. looks like Sterns was driving into Northport as redacted. In addition, Sergeant Fisher advised the subject vehicle left the city at approximately 7:46 a.m. He was there over an hour in Northport, if this is indeed Sterns. And investigators provided information that the suspect's father, Chris Sterns, was paying for a rental storage facility at Life Storage. The discussion and request were for NPPD to possibly check the storage facility for the missing person. In the meantime, I was in contact with our Investigations Bureau Commander, Captain Paul Harvey, who was also monitoring the situation and providing updates. They both decided to respond to the scene. This officer self-dispatched at 21:21 hours, arriving at approximately 21:31 hours, so that's around 9:31 that night, meeting with Sergeant Fisher and Officer Hart, learning they were waiting for the storage area manager, Miss Allen, to arrive so they could identify which unit was Sterns. So at 22:56 hours, Miss Allen printed out a unit activity summary for storage unit B112, which was accessed February 28th at 9:08 a.m. and then exited at 9:19 hours. So that was that morning. So it's kind of strange how they know that Sterns, I believe, entered. Yeah, it says the suspect, a vehicle connected to him, entered the city of Northport at 6:29 hours, but left the city at 7:46 a.m. So did Sterns come back? Because someone accessed the storage unit at 9:08 a.m. and then exited at 9:16 a.m. So who would have been that person? This is weird. Depending on the gate, the renter would have to enter their gate access code to get in and out. Sergeant Fisher also attempted to blank, but also learned that it had been non-working for about 1 week, even though Sergeant Fisher remedied did not reveal who accessed the storage unit. So that's different, huh? Keep watching because it sounds like the storage unit person screwed up the records. No one may have accessed the storage unit on February 28th. Detective Jason Sidgick was requested to respond to NPPD and start a search warrant affidavit for the storage unit, noting that investigators from other agencies would provide additional probable cause and act as co-affiants. They're noting different detectives who were sent to Sterns' residence on Snug Street to speak with Debra and Sterns. It's saying to refer to those reports. Supplemental reports, which we're reading through all of them. At 22:55 hours, so that's 10:55 p.m., cadaver dogs were summoned to the scene, and at 23:49 hours, members of a local search and rescue org arrived at the scene, deployed more than one dog, walked the area between the 2 rows of storage units. That included B124. The handlers noted some of the dogs had a noticeable change in behavior near B124. There was no positive alert or indication on that storage unit. We then asked them to check Sterns' residence, which they did. So the dogs had a change in behavior. Could it have been because they were alerted not that Maddie's body was actually there at that point, but had it ever been there? Or the residual odors from Maddie being in the trunk of Sterns' car, could that have caused the dogs to change a little bit? On February 29th at approximately 1:58 a.m., OCSO detective, and it's kind of redacted with red asterisks, arrived on scene, and then at 2:24 a.m., KPD detective Mark Morris also arrived but was eventually redirected to the main police department to collaborate with Detective Sidgick. Finally, at approximately 3:44 a.m., Detective Sidgick advised that the search warrant had been signed by Judge Krug. Crime scene technicians Elizabeth Walker and Casey Howe arrived at approximately 4:43 a.m., began processing storage unit B124, which eventually required Northport Fire and Rescue to open by cutting the lock. Once the lock was removed and the unit was open, the missing person in question was not located inside, nor were there any signs of struggle or obvious signs of criminal activity. We ultimately secured the storage unit with a new padlock from an adjoining vacant unit. Sergeant Fisher kept the keys for safekeeping until the business reopened. On February 29th, 2024 at 7:23 hours, Sergeant Fisher returned to Life Storage and confirmed the gate access times were accurate. So we do not know who accessed the storage facility with Chris Sterns' access code the morning of February 28th. That's interesting. Another quick one-pager. Reporting Officer Michael Reed on February 29th at approximately 4:38 a.m. Officer Reed, arrived on scene at the storage unit. I arrived on scene and relieved Officer Hart on the crime scene log. I took over the crime scene log, and while on scene, he logged in all these different people. Crime scene was broken down at 5:45 a.m. I marked the remaining personnel on scene out of the crime scene at 5:45 a.m. That concludes my involvement in this incident. This incident occurred in the city of Northport, Sarasota County, Florida. Now a quick 2-pager. We are getting down to the get down. Almost done here. Reporting Officer Lawrence Strajic. On February 28, 2024, at approximately 8:28 p.m., I received a phone call from Sergeant Fisher, who advised me he was on scene at Life Storage in reference to the investigation being conducted surrounding missing juvenile Maddie. I was advised the prime person of interest connected to her disappearance, Stephan Sterns, had been in the Northport area and had family that resided in Northport. I was further advised that Stephan's father, Chris Sterns, was renting a storage unit at Life Storage, and NPPD wanted an assist in this joint investigation. This person was briefed by Sergeant Fisher, responded to Life Storage, and Sergeant Fisher had been in constant contact with investigators from Orange County and relayed that the vehicle Stephan had been driving had been observed in the Northport area in the early morning hours of February 28th. It was believed he had possibly gone to Life Storage, where his dad had a unit. Attempts to speak with the Life Storage business contact were made. No phone contact was made. Sergeant Fisher had Charlotte County Sheriff's deputies respond to the manager's home and requested that she respond to Life Storage. So they had to go to this woman's home and wake her up and say, look, come here and check these entry records. It was later discovered that blank for Life Storage blank during the time frame in which it was believed Stephan possibly was there. So, I don't know what that means. I was also informed that vacant storage units were tagged and marked and were unlocked and able to be opened. With that info, I physically walked the entire facility and opened up every exterior vacant storage unit. They were checking everything. Nothing was located in any of the units, nor did I discover any empty unit that was secured, with the exception of one unit that was confirmed rented by management. During the course of my involvement, I had Sarasota Search and Rescue respond with cadaver dogs. 3 dogs walked the area around Unit B24. They must mean B124, the unit Chris rented, and although they displayed, quote, a change in behavior, none of them gave any positive alerts to the presence of any deceased bodies. I also assisted in the review of the search warrant for Unit B124, and once it was approved and signed, I requested crime scene respond. I also had NPFD respond to assist with cutting the lock off the storage unit. Once the storage unit's exterior was processed, the lock was cut, the unit was opened up. I stood by while detectives from KPD and OCSO conducted their search of the storage unit. There was nothing of evidentiary value located in the storage unit, no further action taken. Now, real quickly, Reporting Officer Amanda Waters wrote, on Thursday, February 29th at 5:12 a.m., I dispatched myself to the Life Storage unit. Upon arrival, I assisted in completing a crime scene log. That concludes my involvement in the matter. Now, here's the doozy. Let's get through this. By Reporting Officer Michael Witkotsky. This is the wild one. This is the 6-pager. February 28th, 2024, at approximately 22:08 hours, so that is around 10 p.m., he responded to Life Storage. We know where it's located. At 22:35, he arrived, contacted other detectives. They were assisting on this case. They were worried the juvenile's corpse may have been placed in the Life Storage by Stephan. It also says, I provided security for the search and rescue teams while they examined the storage unit and checked the public swall of Snug Street. During the check of the storage center, the handler advised a change in behavior by the dogs in the area of Unit B112, area of interest, but no alerts. Detective Fegan and I conducted a neighborhood canvass surrounding Snug Street, the home of Stephan's biological parents, during which the following houses were located. It is unknown if anything of value, it's kind of redacted a lot here. Additional follow-up will be needed if deemed necessary by the primary agency. It says an open home under construction in the vicinity of Snug Street and the adjacent dump trailer were checked. So it has all these Snug Street and Master Street addresses. On scene, they conducted a check of the nearby blank for evidence, but nothing pertinent was discovered at any location. It has all these different businesses. He assisted with executing the search warrant on the storage unit all the stuff we knew about the lock being cut. More specifically, the unit appeared to have been well maintained and was not in a state of disarray, nor appeared to have been recently disturbed. Inside were multiple boxes with miscellaneous items, none of which were pertinent to this investigation. He departed without incident, but we would learn differently. Now, March 1st, he returned to the life storage facility, contacted the assistant store manager, Dennis Casey. Dennis provided the following verbal information and records pertinent to the investigation. Dennis explained the computer printout that was previously provided regarding Chris Sterns' storage unit and facility access. Specifically, he disclosed the computer system periodically and randomly conducts checks of the assigned users in order to validate their account status. Dennis provided a computer printout of Chris's account activity from January 1st to the present, which showed Chris's access code was used twice on January 31st at 8:55 a.m. and again the same day at 9:01 a.m. The only other time Chris's access code was used was on February 16th at 6:11 p.m. and again the same day on 6:13 p.m. So, as previously thought, Chris's access code was not used. However, this info was not known at the time of the lawfully requested and executed search warrant. So after all that, it sounds like Sterns or no one else actually accessed the storage unit as they had previously thought on that Wednesday, February 28th. But it's still a good thing they got the search warrant for that locker because they found the CSAM. That's weird. Dennis also provided a list for all users who had accessed the storage facility. It says on the March 28th, but I think they mean February 28th, none of which appear to be relevant to this investigation. Maybe they mean March 28th. It's confusing here. But this detective, St. Jean, and I then went to the Snug Street location, contacted both Chris and Debra to discuss this investigation, during which they provided the following unsworn verbal info pertinent to this investigation. But Detective Jean recorded this conversation via his cell phone, so we'll get to hear it. Chris stated on February 28th at approximately 3:15 a.m. he met Stephan at their hotel in Kissimmee after his phone was seized by law enforcement. So I thought he had met him at 11 p.m. It doesn't take that long to drive, I believe, from Northport up to Kissimmee. He opined, listen to this, he opined Stephan was extremely exhausted and seemed to have a, quote, heavy weight metaphorically pressing on him and seemed to have fabricated an explanation regarding the factory reset of his seized cell phone. Yeah, he lied about that factory reset. His dad knew he was lying. After checking into the hotel, Chris advised they all went to sleep in their respective rooms. Between approximately 9 a.m. and 9:45 a.m., Blank contacted him and asked if he knew where Stephan went. So it must have been Jennifer contacting Chris, saying, "Where's Stephan?" as he had left the hotel shortly before. Stephan left that hotel around 9 a.m. or before. He recalled Stephan returned to the hotel sometime between 11:15 and 11:30 a.m. Chris later learned his son traveled to Northport but claimed he had no idea. So he learned it later but didn't know then. Furthermore, Chris explained, and then all that's redacted. During the interview, Chris received a phone call from another law enforcement agency wherein they alerted him that Maddie's body had been recovered. After receiving the call, Chris appeared solemn and upset she had indeed been murdered. Prior to departing the residence, Chris explained his son had left a gaming computer at their residence and he had placed it in the garage after he was arrested, as he no longer wanted it in his home and believed it was of evidentiary value to law enforcement. So Chris is like, that's a gaming computer, but I want nothing to do with it. It's like he had an inkling his son was up to no good. He further recalled Stephan had accessed the computer within the past week, possibly after Maddie went missing. Debra denied Stephan had ever returned to their home on Wednesday. So why did she deny that? Wasn't he there Wednesday at 3 a.m. sometime? Or was that Tuesday? It's getting confusing here. I'll let you read it all for yourself and figure it out. She explained how she viewed him, quote, as a monster, and inquired why the media and public blamed both her and Christopher for her adult son's heinous deeds. She explained she was calling the victim's name, Maddie, outside on Wednesday in the chance her son had brought her back to Northport after she learned he had allegedly returned. So it's after she learned he returned, allegedly. That's when she was calling Maddie's name. When she learned the child's body had been recovered, Debra began sobbing and remained essentially speechless. She accused blank as knowing blank was being raped for years before she was subsequently murdered. So was Debra saying Jen knew Maddie was assaulted for years before she was murdered? We don't know the names there. They're all blanked out. So I contacted my supervision regarding Stephan's computer, who concurred to take the device as evidence, give it to KPD. So that's it. All that stuff. That's it for... Wow. They show Chris Sterns. He's 72, 5'11", gray hair, brown eyes, fair complexion. And wow. Just wow. I better close this out and let you go read. Luke 17:22 through 25. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "The time will come when you will long to see even one of the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. They will say to you, 'Look, the Messiah is there,' or 'Look, he is here.' Do not go away to see him, and do not run after them. For just like the lightning, when it flashes out of one part of the sky, gives light to the other part of the sky, so visible will the Son of Man be in his day. But first he must suffer many things, and be repudiated and rejected, and considered unfit to be the Messiah by this unbelieving generation." Thanks for sticking with me through all of those PDFs. We'll have more evidence to come as it continues to come out, as these public records requests continue to be fulfilled. Keep praying for justice for Maddie. At least more and more is coming out. Again, take no hate out on anyone. I don't know if any of this points to any implications of guilt. You see how they were confused and thought someone else had accessed the storage unit. Maybe not Stephan, but it turns out maybe no one did that Wednesday. It's so confusing, but the police are doing a great job. Thank you and take care.